Welcome to the Streets and People podcast, where we explore having more transport options that are less hassle to use. Hosted by Get Around Caboolture, we bring you 3 types of episodes. People and Projects share stories of change. Not Everyone Drives gives voice to non-drivers. Road Rules 360 unpacks road rules for people outside a car. Music by Grand Project, and let's make our Grand Project reimagining streets made for people. Today we're doing one of our People and Projects episodes. I'm here in the studio with Vanny Mwamba, and I know Vanny because he posted a really cool post, and I just thought I want to get him on the show. I'm here on Gubbi Gubbi country in Caboolture in Queensland. Vanny, whereabouts are you? And your organisation is called Urban Hikers, and how did you become interested in even doing urban hiking? How did you arrive at that?
I'm originally from Congo, and I moved to Cincinnati about 21 years ago. With 21, so I was interested in elevating my cultural competency. And that usually take place in knowingly feel at home in the new places. And walking, always, even back home, my mother used to call me vagabond because I used to just go for a walk, even in Congo. I was restless. I need to move to see new places. But the same spirit carried with me when I came here. And I always knew that my sense of comfort came from seeing a lot of things. If I get to see, feel, I get more comfortable in a place. So yeah, that was the early journey leading up to the urban hikers. And I think it really took off when I met a couple friend, a fellow from Africa as well, from Ethiopia, and he's from here in Cincinnati. So 2 major religion, 3 different country of origin. And the tensions of arguing, engaging intellectually, and go for long walk was the bedrock of the starting for us urban hikers.
So you have 2 people who became your good friends, but they were in a different religion, and I won't go into the religious side of things, but you clearly had a very strong political or identity difference, that it led to arguments. In order to alleviate the arguments, you found that going on long walks together gave you the opportunity to have these conversations without it becoming superheated. Is that right?
One of the gentlemen used to own a hookah bar. I don't know if you're familiar with hookah.
We're not talking about sex workers, we're talking about marijuana, is that right?
Not marijuana. It's a hookah. Hookah is a Muslim way they smoke in a group. Usually, it's not a tobacco, but it's not a marijuana. It's social smoking. It's well known. We used to spend time there. A lot of university students. So the gentleman owned the hookah bar, and from there we used to talk a lot, and that's where the keen interest of our intellectual back and forth got birthed from. Him is from Ethiopia, from Congo. I'm a reader. He's a reader. We read a lot of books on philosophy, politics. So that gave us enough source material to engage. And after a while, it was like, okay, we talk for 3 hours, the day is on. I'm like, it'd be useful, at least we do something healthy as we talk. Then we were like, okay, let's read the book, then go for a walk. That was the birth of the urban hiker. So it was a book club technically, and using the city on a backdrop as we engage in our book discussion.
Did you find that as you walked around and you looked at the area you're walking in, references that you made in the books, were they ever about transport or anything? They were just more deep philosophical, political things? Did you start to observe things in people's gardens or front yards and street design that had a political or religious connotation that you were pulling out in these stories?
It's all sort of entangled, weave into the old conversations. Sometimes the background disappear if it's pleasant. Sometimes the street make themselves known. There's a noise, there's obstructions, there's a huge smell, there's a black rose. There's a time where the street or the road being louder and sometimes less loud. We notice things sometimes. Accessibility, scenery. There's certain scenery which is pleasant to walk through, and there's certain scenery was just unpleasant. We never had a set route. We sort of drift through, and when it was almost intuitively, we would know where is the midpoint. And sometimes it was more of a searching for coffee shop as a stopping ground. So we said, okay, let's walk here. Let's find out a coffee shop a couple miles from here. That's where we're going to rest. That's sort of the midpoint before we return. So we always have to make a loop to return to our starting point. We start noticing about the city, about the socioeconomical part of the city.
You have a group in Cincinnati and you just walk around different neighborhoods all the time, or do you move all around Cincinnati?
After the first 4 years of mastering, of drifting, now we have a mapping. I have a sort of a vibrational relationship with the city. I understand what it feels like. I was a little bit more confident in now hosting, inviting the community. We open up to the public. After a while, it was like we have a selecting friend to join us. And there was a point after the 4 years, it was okay, let's put as a public invitations to our community. And the community starts showing up. And that changed a little bit the dynamic of it. Because at the early stage, the three of us was comfortable about drifting. When you start inviting people, they have to have a structure. And people want to know, how long am I going to walk? How far? And those things are providing a well structured experience so people can experience the city in controlled way. But still, the conversations, the topic was sort of a free fall. So we sort of drop the book side of things. Recalling that a little bit, there was a point where we decided not to always read the same book at the same time to eradicate excuse of not showing up of I didn't read the book. And it was okay, you get to read whatever you're reading. Maybe you don't read at all, but come tell us what you're learning. It become a place of the intellectual debate of engaging and sharing wisdom. But with the community, it became more of a sense of belonging because there's a lot of people, there's some people that never explored the city in that way. And a lot of people are drivers. They drive those sections back and forth. They never actually walked because there's certain pockets they might deem to be quote unquote dangerous. So they never dare to be able to experience that in a much slow pace, open up the city for them in a way they never thought it would.
And so, those dangerous places, are they dangerous or do they look dangerous? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's all subjective now. Danger is your sense of comfort. I'm coming from Congo. In America, a little bit, especially in downtown, place they might deem to be dangerous is usually people that look like me. There's a way to move about those spaces without screaming at somebody to look like a prey inside of those elements. And I understand the physiology element of it, the how to carry yourself in those spaces. So I don't see them that way. And everybody mind their own business. As long as you mind your own business, you walk through. But for different people, they have a different relationship. Like I said, the city has its own psyche. There's certain psyche seems to be a little bit more on age than others. Depending on the comfort level of each individual, having the group together was another layer of safety that removed the age of people not to worry too much because their safety was not related on themselves. It was a group envelope that carried them through those spaces.
How many people have you got now in your group?
Currently, we have over 1,500 people. It's a large group. Over the year, I've walked with over 3,000 people. And there's a science, especially when you want to walk, I limited to 15 people per walk. And the reason is for crossing the streets. A huge chain can be hard to manage sometimes. And also, we always integrating those social moment of stopping at cafe. I think 15 people walking in a cafe can be manageable. So I was like, okay, this is a little bit of the benchmark. So the group not to be too much. It can feel still intimate, slightly. And also on the logistics side of things, the crossing of the streets was also another influencer to have that number. But it's been good. So it seems to be the magic number for me. The experience seems to always meet. It's great.
What was one of the surprising things that you found about running these groups?
The sense of belonging and the interface. There's not a proper interface to interact with the city in a safe, quote unquote, in place where it feels safe for most people. I think that people is like, oh, this is like a safe interface where I get to connect with people. At the same time, I'm get to explore the city in a way it doesn't make me feel a little bit reckless. The walking, has so much benefit. The mental health aspect of it. The other things is majority of gatherings sometimes in community can be a little bit of stress inducing activity, like parties sometimes, and there's people sensitive to those things. What I've noticed, walking sort of harmonize those things in a way. When people move, they don't feel like they're being blocked. They still feel like there's a freedom into community activity. It's like you're not in a room with people where you just have to navigate left and right. You can escape while with the group. There was a time where you're allowed to escape, but you're with the group. There was that element was quite incredible. The Western world, loneliness is also big. Majority of people with career take precedent, and they don't have a lot of quality relationship outside of work. And I've seen people trying to do the catch up. It's like, oh, I've neglected my social life. I don't have a quality people that I can engage. The part of walking, it does activate the cerebral part of people. The conversation seems to be a little bit much deeper, better as people walking together. That has been the eye-opening to see that single activity was bringing more humanity out of people. It's like when I walk, I meet more humanity than when I drive. Because when you drive, it's like, don't make a mistake, right? It's like sometimes I can walk and maybe slightly bumping somebody, I can say, excuse me, right? But when you're driving, no, it's worse. There's less humanity in driving and more humanity in walking. So the same people, you take them and you put in a car, they're a little bit animal against each other. But when you walk together, the more humanity that flow into them.
Are you only in Cincinnati, or do you have chapters outside Cincinnati?
It's been also a learning experience to use this model and to show people how to do it. But we do have a chapter in a couple of the cities. As this year, currently, I'm working in this huge element to show people how to do it properly. Because there's a lot of more to it. The curator element part of it. Because people come sometimes with a lot of anxiety. They come, but it's not malicious. It's like, that's just stress of life. Just to walk you through the way I structure the walk, we have a 15-minute to do the small talk. My goal is like, hope you survive the 15 minutes, right? You get to engage with as many people as you can there. And I find myself most of the time facilitating. Those 15 minutes is like wiring people to connect, to get them out of the shells so they can be able to truly make this journey enjoyable or memorable for them. There's a little bit of pulling people out. And after that, as we start walking, it does automatically just people connect with whoever they feel they have the same energy flow, and it just become natural. After we start walking, there's no more curations. Is the road and the street harmonize the group and to make things go forward smoothly.
Just before we came on air, I asked if you were familiar with America Walks, and you said yes. And America Walks is the host of the Week Without Driving, and we brought it here to Caboolture last year. Did you do it in 2024? And how do you find you have the Week Without Driving? How do you include that as part of your urban hiking?
Actually, I went 4 years without driving on a personal side. Currently, I'm staying in Cincinnati. It is a tough city to get around without driving. If you live in downtown, which I live, the walkability score is on a 90 percentile. But outside of the downtown, it decreased tremendously. And so be able to navigate without a week of car. To be honest, I haven't been able to push that as a campaign. We're still fighting with people to feel comfortable to park slightly far away than walk. We still are at the early stage. I'm certain with time. But as for now, we haven't done any conscious choice. It'd be a tough choice here for now to divorce their car for a week. But there's individuals that do that on their own accord. Where myself, I went for 5 years without a car, and it's a tough, but it was also liberating because I only go places I really care. Because when I was driving, I found myself going across of the town where I don't know what I was doing here. Now that everywhere I go, when I walk, it's like it had to be extremely meaningful because I'm using my own energy.
So my understanding about the Week Without Driving, when I've spoken with America Walks, is that it's to get your political candidates and your decision makers to try at least one day without driving so that they can understand that. And certainly we did that, and one of our politicians,
Yeah.
he had a really interesting experience, and he said, oh yeah, right, there's no bus service. There were certain places I couldn't do it unless somebody drove me there. That was a real eye-opener, and it had a very positive effect on his understanding of the issues, because when you don't drive, it's obviously a huge issue, because people go, oh, but you can just drive, we'll get the bus, or you can walk. And then it's not until you are somewhere and you go, well, there aren't any sidewalks, there aren't any buses, or the buses take forever, or they don't connect well. So these experiences are super important for our decision makers. So that's one of the really good things about the week without driving, is it draws that out. But it's true, I tried to get people in the community to come along for the week without driving, and I often got abuse from the local community because they said, I can't, swear word, I can't do that because I need to drive everywhere because I have all these different commitments, and it doesn't feel safe because of the way our streets are designed. And I know that the US is like us. I think we're slightly better, but not always by much. Yeah, Cincinnati, the area where you live, is that an affluent area where you have a lot of urban infrastructure, or is it a poorer area? Tell me a little bit about where you live and how you get to your work.
Until I think 7 months ago, I used to live in a central downtown called Over the Rhine. And I work and live in the same place. It take me about 20-minute walk from my house to work. I was a process engineer for 1 year. That was an ideal situation where I would just leave my house and walk to work. And prior year, I live in a suburb and I have to drive at least 30 minutes to get to work. After 5 p.m., where people leave work, I get ready for rush hour because the street is jammed. I can tell the difference of quality of life, even my stress level as I'm arriving after work. When I was driving, I get back from work. You carry work with you in your house. You just like come with it. My partners, if I have stressful days, they'll feel it. I'll bring that to the house. But as walking sometimes, it gave me a breather. I can clear it up myself before I get to the house. Currently, I live in suburb, is a affluent neighborhood, and walkability here is extremely zero. I've been doing a lot of self-reporting. So there was a park a few blocks away from my house, but it's about zero point 0.5 miles away from my house. But they will only have halfway sidewalk. But after that, I have to walk in the street, in the middle of the road or somebody's property in order to access the park. It's been quite an eye-opening. I'm like, okay, this dependency, everything is destination driven, right? I was saying it costs me more to go walk here because I have to get in the car to drive 5 minutes away just to go walk. Like I rather just walk from my house to the park, but it's not a straightforward path. My hope, United States has a strong lobby with cars and car dependency, but more and more, if you look the chart of neighborhood and the heart disease rate and all the problems that come with so much driving, sitting all the time, we don't have a lot of choice but to truly make our city smarter and walkable, because over there is killing the population slowly.
So say our listener is thinking, oh gee, that'd be great. I love the idea of urban hiking. We do have some listeners in the US, so they could just reach out to you on urban hiking, and I can put that in the show notes. Say somebody wants to start a group in their own town. How would you suggest that people do something like that?
It's a pretty straightforward process. There's two locations. So defining starting point, and it can be a public library, it can be a coffee shop, can be a park, all right? That what it defining. And the midpoint. Now the midpoint, it have to be a resting point. Can be also a place where you have access to restroom or beverage, things of that nature. So if you, let's say my goal is to walk 4 miles, and you can design a way where your midpoint land on a 2 miles point. So that way you always return to the starting point. That's usually how to start it. And we got social media. And interesting enough is I've used a different platform and that tend to invite a different type of people. And you can see platform as also a place where people go hang out. All these sections, it's part of the whole community, but depending where you put most of your energy, you get to attract the people from each of those platforms. But yes, and I'll suggest you to do what we call a route discovery, which is defining the whole route for yourself first. Go walk yourself that first, because people also get feed from your confidence as a guide. So if they feel like you know where you're going, usually somebody can tell. You put the whole group at rest. So confidence is a huge part of put a majority of people at rest, because people hate ambiguously to just like draft and say this person no. Because I remember one time I was walking and the road that which I was going toward it was black. So I have to go the different way, but intuitively it's somewhere there, but I have to do a detour. And the moment of detour, I can feel the group anxiety rising. Do you know where we're going? And yes, I usually start with friends, people that you know well, and get comfortable with. Invite a couple friends, and make it fun. Also, go walk in places. Also has a good site at the beginning with, and don't overstructure the experience. For me, early on, because I didn't want to turn the sidewalk to a classroom. It's a small square footage and let the people use it. So it's predicated on flow. Don't jam the sidewalk. And we usually, when we walk, is like from one point to the resting point. We just keep flowing. And it's good. I was conscious about it early on, not to stop and trying to tell people about the history of the place, because ultimately people get to learn about it based on their senses, right? You can do some research later or send them the description of the things that can be on the route, but as you're doing the activity, you're better off maintaining the flow and the momentum throughout to make the experience seamlessly and beneficial on the health side as well, and also on the community. So yeah, I would highly suggest it's a tools for leadership, it's a tools for you learn the city and reveal itself to you as well as you walk more, the smell of different places, the architecture differences, the texture, the feel. It's incredible. I highly suggest anyone to foster that relationship with the city, and you make you more comfortable in your own city.
We were just chatting a moment ago and you mentioned you had a movie about the urban hiking. Tell us a little bit about it. What's it called?
The film is called Why We Walk, and the film tells the story of the urban hikers. And we walk from Harper's Ferry, which is in West Virginia. It was inspired by John Brown. And for context, John Brown was an abolitionist. It's sort of the first wave of the Civil Wars. He started right in Harper's Ferry. That's where our walk started. So there was an element of symbolism, because there was a spark of freeing people that movement represents, that John Brown spark. And we walked from there to Washington, D.C., which is about 62 miles walk. And it was a 4 days walk. And D.C., we went to the African American Museum, where there was a collection of all the accomplishment of the early risers in the struggle of expressions. The symbolism of the two, right? You got this one is the starting of freeing people up, and the museum is a collection of the margin of those who at least able to merge out of the collective conscious, but still in such a strict an environment. For me, it was also that learning experience, and that same journey was made by a lot of the slave who was running away in the same route. So there was like a tapping into some of the old journey of people trying to free themselves. And for us also, we will free ourselves to honor and truly appreciate the kind of human bravery when it's best. And John Brown is sort of represent that. Is someone that we invite John Brown to barbecue any day. And I feel like it's a motto that we can all aspire to be, that we don't have to be accomplice to things, to everything. Sometimes, even as our home, we have to step forward to be like, no, this is not the way things are supposed to be. Let's change the route of things. I'm a tree friend. It's the longest we have walked together in one day. And the interesting part is with less sensory, and because it was a nature place, and we were able to be truthful with one another. So the film is available online while we walk. It took us about 5 years to make that. It's been quite eye-opening and quite an amazing journey.
Well, we'll put the show notes for that. And I speak as an advocate. I feel often, why am I doing this? Why do I bother? But hearing that, it just goes to show it's not not one person, but one person is a spark for another person, is a spark for another person. And I'm not the first one to be doing this. I'm not the only person to be doing this. And there are plenty of people who are going to be coming after me. And so it's really good to remember that it's not about just what I'm doing. It's about how I'm doing one thing, and that's also supporting what others are doing, who have done before, who are doing now, and are doing in the future. We're all in this large historical process of the past, the present, which will be the past, and the future, which will become the present and the past. So,
Hey.
you know, yeah.
Yes, because sometimes it's invisible. The collective give you the baton to carry on a specific work. Granted, sometimes as you're running, there's no audience. It's just you with the baton. But maybe the audience is at the end. There's somebody else who's waiting to pass. The unseen scene. I admire the workers as the people that do the work, that pave the way, not even knowing they are doing it. It's like the work you're doing, we need to get our city to build for us. We don't have to accommodate to it.
And I was thinking about that, how people can get fined for being on the street when we have always walked in the street. It's just the last 100 years we have not been allowed to.
Ooh.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah.
So now I've given you something to think about, haven't I?
There you go.
So we're coming up to the end of time. I've really got lots. I've so enjoyed the pace of our conversation and what you've shared. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been lovely. Before we go, are there any other closing remarks? Anything else you would like to share?
I think walking, maybe just for walking, as you said, walking make us human. It was designing for us. We were designed to move. And I think the more you do, the more you find out the beauty of it. And intellectually, myself, I'm a creator, and there's 1,000 of ideas that come. But usually using the sidewalk to weave through, I use the sidewalk as a canvas to sort of live through idea that is fun, but it's not feasible. Also for your community, and it's also a good portal for conversation. So if you haven't catch up with a friend or somebody you truly want to get to know, I would highly suggest to invite them on a walk. For one, is a win-win situation because you get some exercise and the conversation flow, because the blood flow in the brain is at the highest, is always going to be better. I say keep walking and be curious about your city and expand your sense of comfort through walking.
It's a great conversation. Thanks so much, Vanny. I'm so pleased I responded and we took the time to chat. Thanks again.
Sam, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Streets and People podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who'd find it helpful. Your small action could make a big difference. We're on all the usual podcasting platforms, so don't miss a single story. To find out what else we do, check out getaroundcaboolture.au. Until next time, remember, there's more than one way to get where you're going. Keep moving, keep listening, and keep imagining streets made for people.